Senator Feingold.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you both for coming again to testify here today. While we may not always see eye to eye in the current situation in Iraq or the way forward, I have great respect for your service to our country and for the difficult work that you're undertaking. And I hope you won't and you should not take it personally when I say that I wish we were also hearing today from those who look at Iraq from a broader perspective. The participation at this hearing of those charged with regional and global responsibilities would have helped us answer the most important question we face, which is not whether we are winning or losing in Iraq, but are we winning or losing in the global fight against al-Qaeda. Right now, Iraq is hurting our national security. It is the cause célèbre for jihadists, breeding a deep resentment of U.S. involvement in the Muslim world, as the intelligence community has so clearly stated. That is why we need to redeploy our troops. If we do, Iran, as well as Turkey and Syria and other regional actors, will have to decide if Iraqi instability is really in their interests once we are no longer on the hook. Iraqi factions will have a new incentive to come to the negotiating table to create a viable power-sharing agreement. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, we will be able to adequately address what must be our top priority: the threat posed by al-Qaeda around the globe, and particularly its safe haven in Afghanistan-Pakistan region. In that regard, again, according to the intelligence community, al-Qaeda has regenerated the core operational capabilities needed to conduct attacks inside the United States. And terrorists who would conduct those attacks, including an influx of Westerners, are being trained in the federally administered tribal areas of Pakistan. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff testified that, quote, the most likely near-term attack on the United States will come from al-Qaeda, unquote, via its safe haven in Pakistan. So, General, you were just talking about where do you take the risks? You repeated it several times. Where do you take the risks? General and Ambassador, do you agree with me that our top national security priority should be addressing the threat posed by al-Qaeda? General? Go
ahead. Clearly, al-Qaeda is our strategic threat. We, of course, have to look at this from the Iraq perspective. That's where our jobs are. That's what our mission is. With respect to al-Qaeda, that's why I think what the surge has achieved over this past year has been so important, because al-Qaeda in Anbar and Baghdad, as well as the north, was well on its way to having the kind of base or safe haven in which it would be sufficiently unthreatened that it could do strategic planning from Iraq against us here.
Well, let me ask the General, too, then you've answered my question. General, do you think al-Qaeda is our top threat?
I do, Senator, and I think it's very important to remember what Zawahiri and Osama bin Laden have repeatedly stated, both publicly and privately, and that is that the central front of their global war of terror is in Iraq. And it is actually hugely important, not only that we have made the gains against al-Qaeda in Iraq, but that Sunni Arabs have come to reject al-Qaeda in Iraq.
And but General, al-Qaeda's safe haven is in Pakistan, not Iraq.
There is certainly a safe haven in Pakistan as well. The safe havens they had in Iraq are very much under threat.
You would agree that the greater safe haven at this point, their greater operability is in Pakistan or Afghanistan rather than Iraq, correct?
I believe that's so. Again, I'd go with the intelligence analysts because my focus is in Iraq.
All right, but if
I'm
Iraq
obviously aware that there is in the Fatah area a safe haven for al-Qaeda, and that's where al-Qaeda senior leadership issues its directives to folks like al-Qaeda Iraq.
Well, if Iraq is really the key, why has our current approach to counterterrorism in Iraq been accompanied by an increased threat from al-Qaeda around the world? Why does our intelligence community say things are actually worse than they were before?
Again, Senator, I'm talking about al-Qaeda in Iraq.
Well, I'm talking about that too. I'm asking about, given the fact that you say the key is to deal with them in Iraq, why is it that as we're dealing with them in Iraq, has the threat internationally increased from al-Qaeda rather than decreased?
What I said, Senator, was that al-Qaeda views its central front in its global war on terror as being in Iraq. In other words, in a sense, their main effort. I can't speak to what they have been doing in the Fatah or how they have been growing there. Again, that's obviously not my area of
Well, it's interesting
operations.
because al-Qaeda said several things. In fact, Osama bin Laden gave quite the speech in 2004, which I think bears reading. He says that his goal is to destroy the United States by bankrupting the United States. I would suggest what he's doing to us, if that in Iraq is really his goal, is to suck our economic and military capacity, and that for us to somehow believe that staying in Iraq is not playing into his hands, I think, is a mistake. General, you have stated that Iran is backing militias that are targeting U.S. forces. According to the Congressional Research Service, Iran also backs Maliki's political party as well as the Islamic Supreme Council of Iraq and the Badr Brigade. Isn't it true that the Iraqi security forces we are arming, training, and fighting alongside continue to be infiltrated by militias, including the Iranian-backed Badr Brigade?
First of all, it is no secret that Iran has supported all Shia movements to varying degrees in Iraq. The Supreme Council is in the Badr Corps were elements in Iraq. By the CPA law that was adopted by policy, there is an integration of militias into the Iraqi security forces. And when they don't serve in the interest of the Iraqi security forces, then they are discharged. And in fact, that's what's happened with some militia members and with some others. So there has been an integration of several different militias over time by, again, CPA law that was passed back in 2004. But backing, in a sense, politically, perhaps with money, undoubtedly with money, and providing training, arming, equipping, and direction of individuals, in particular the special groups, is a very different matter.
Ambassador, following what Senator Kerry was talking about, wouldn't you agree that part of the political stalemate in Iraq is the result of disagreement among Iraqi leaders about our military presence there?
Actually, I don't think that is a significant element. As we have consulted with Iraq's leaders, we saw this in August in the leadership communique there. The five principal leaders, again, Sunni, Shia, and Kurd, all stressed the importance of a long-term relationship with the United States, including security. The only major element of the Iraqi political constellation that is on record as opposing U.S. force presence is the Sadr trend. Just about everybody else understands that our presence there is extremely important to security and stability at this juncture.
Well, I see that my time's up, but let me just add the fact that the majority of Iraqi parliamentarians have called for a timetable for U.S. withdrawal. That's a pretty significant group. And Prime Minister Maliki was apparently so concerned that the Parliament would not agree to a renewal of the UN mandate that he basically did an end run around them and signed it without their consent, which I think may well have been a violation of Iraqi law. Mr. Chairman, I see my time is up.